This is Skinny Bones, and we're on Chapter 10, Who's on Second. The umpire called to the coaches. It was time for the game to begin. On the sideline, TJ was being interviewed for the 6 o'clock news. I tried to get close enough to listen, but they had already finished. As TJ walked off, I heard the interviewer say, "Good luck out there today, TJ. We're all rooting for you." I looked into the bleachers and saw Fran and Ethel. They were hard to spot because they didn't have their mops with them, but the two of them got my attention and gave me a thumbs up sign. I smiled. "Not everyone's rooting for you, TJ." TJ's team was the home team, so they hustled onto the field. Meanwhile, TJ started warming up on the mound. Just like in our pitching contest, every warm-up pitch he threw went zinging over the plate at about 60 miles an hour. "Batter up!" shouted the ump. Kevin Murphy was the first batter on our team. Kevin can hit the ball a ton when he connects. The trouble is, he mostly doesn't. Connect, I mean. As soon as he stepped up to the plate, I could tell he was really nervous. He kept trying to spit, but nothing would come out. Instead, he just kept making this funny sound with his lips, like p, p, p. It was pretty awful. TJ grinned, then he wound up and threw the ball as hard as he could. "Strike one!" yelled the umpire. Kevin looked confused. "Did we start already?" he asked the ump. TJ went to his windup for the second pitch. This time he threw it a little slower. Just as the ball got to the plate, it curved. Kevin swung with all his might. "Strike two!" yelled the umpire again. Poor Kevin. I really felt sorry for him. Whenever you swing as hard as you can and miss, you always feel like a fool. He tried acting cool, but it didn't work. When he knocked the dirt off his shoes, he accidentally hit himself in the ankle. Embarrassed, he quickly got ready to bat again. Unfortunately, the third pitch that TJ threw was even better than the first two. Kevin just watched it go whizzing by. "Strike three! Batter's out!" called the ump. Everyone in the stands began to cheer loudly for TJ. Kevin stood there, stunned for a second. Then he walked over and sat down on the bench, bent over so no one could see his face, and began to cry. It wasn't the kind of crying you could hear, but you could see his back heaving up and down, so you definitely knew he was sobbing. At first, the whole team was pretty embarrassed about it, but as it turned out, Kevin was the best batter of the inning. He was the only one who swung. The second batter, Willie Jensen, just stood there, counted 3 pitches, and sat down. And the third batter never even took the bat off his shoulder. Our team was out in the field before we knew it. Everyone was looking totally depressed. It was pretty clear that we needed something to get the old team's spirit going. I called them into a huddle for a pep talk. "Okay, guys," I said. "All we need to do is hold them. What do you say? Let's get them out 1, 2, 3. 3 up, 3 down." Denzel Johnson, the first baseman, laughed right in my face. "Are you nuts, Alex? Our team hasn't made 3 outs in a row all year." "Yeah, Frankovich, what are you trying to do, mock us? We'll be lucky if we make 3 outs the entire game," said Willie Jensen. So much for team spirit. I didn't care what those guys said, though. I was still determined to cheer our team on. Frankie Rogers was our starting pitcher. As I walked to right field, I watched him warm up. Frankie only throws 2 warm-up pitches per game. He says he doesn't have that many good pitches in him, and he doesn't want to risk using them up in practice. I started chattering from the outfield. "Okay, Frankie, pitch it in there, babe. Right over the plate, Frankie. You can do it. You can do it, Frankie, babe." Frankie threw the first pitch. It hit the dirt about 10 feet in front of the plate. "Ball 1, shouted the umpire. "That's okay, Frankie. Don't worry. You can do it," I yelled. "Chuck it in there, Frankie. Smoke it in there, guy." Just then, Frankie made the timeout sign and began walking toward right field. I figured he wanted to have some sort of strategy session, so I ran up to meet him. "Would you please shut up, Alex?" he said. "How am I supposed to concentrate with all that noise out there? You're just adding pressure. That's all you're doing." "No, Frankie, I'm encouraging you," I explained. "It's baseball chatter. I'm supposed to chatter. The whole team is supposed to chatter." Frankie rolled his eyes. "Get a clue, Alex. This is not a normal game, and we are not a normal team. And I do not respond well to chatter, so put a sock in it, okay?" Frankie stopped back to the pitcher's mound. His next pitch hit the batter on the foot, and he took his base. The batter after that got hit in the arm. The whole thing was totally humiliating. It was bad enough that Frankie was hitting people, but he wasn't even throwing the ball hard enough for it to hurt anyone. The guys weren't even blinking. I shook my head and glanced over to the sidelines. That's when I saw the cameraman. He had just spotted me in the field, and he was pointing his camera in my direction. "Oh, jeez. Oh no, he said he would only be filming TJ. Quickly, I put both my hands over my face so that no one would recognize me on the news. Unfortunately, just as I covered my eyes, I heard the loud crack of the bat. Somebody had hit the ball. Hard. I looked up. A kid was running to first base, and all the guys on my team had turned to stare at right field. Right field? Wait, that was me! A pop fly was headed my way, and I didn't even know where it was. Quickly, I looked up into the sky, but the sun was directly in my eyes. I was doomed. I was finished. I was dead meat. Any second, a hard ball was going to smack me right in the head, and I had no idea where it was even coming from. I had to do something to protect myself. In a flash, I took my glove off my hand and put it on my head. Thud! The ball hit my glove. Then it rolled off the top of my head and landed on the ground next to me. Frankie Rogers started going nuts. He dropped it! He dropped the stupid ball! He screamed. Man, did that make me mad. Frankie Rogers, of all people, yelling at me for making a mistake. I did not, I shouted back at him. How could a person drop something when he didn't even catch it in the first place? Just because something lands on your head does not mean that you caught it. It does too, shouted Frank. You caught it on your head and then you dropped it. Man, was I ticked. I kicked at my glove. If a bird poops on your head and you don't say that you caught it, do you, you jerk? I yelled. Unfortunately, I was so busy yelling, I had totally forgotten about the ball. By the time I threw it in, 2 runs had scored and the batter was safe at third. I looked at the sidelines. My coach was waving at me. Odd, I thought. But just to be polite, I waved back. He's not waving, Frankovich, you moron, shouted Ricky Delaney, the center fielder. He's shaking his fist. I squinted my eyes and looked closer. Yep, that was a fist all right. The guy was furious. For the first time in my life, I was actually grateful to be out in right field. It took a few minutes for things to settle back down, but finally Frankie got ready to face his 4th batter. Slowly, old TJ Stoner walked up to the plate and took a few practice swings. Then he spit in his hands, grinned, and pointed at me with his bat. Panicked, I began backing up. No. Please. No. If I dropped another one, I was done for. Frankie pitched the ball. TJ leaned back and swung it with all his might. It was a hard grounder and was screaming my way. It streaked past the first baseman and tore into right field. Stay calm, Alex. Stay calm. Just do what you did in practice today. You can do it. You can get TJ Stoner out. I did everything right. I swear I did. First, I ran up to meet the ball. Then I stooped down to block it, and I didn't take my eye off it, not even for a split second. It's almost here. I've got it. I've got it. But just as the ball was about to roll into my glove, it hit a clump of grass and took a crazy bounce to the right. No! I screamed. I made a diving leap, but it was no use. The ball sped away and rolled all the way to the back fence. The crowd went wild. TJ was on his way to an inside-the-park home run, and he wasn't even hurrying. I watched him as he rounded second base. He looked over his shoulder at me and tipped his cap. Man, did he make me sick. Once again, I had completely forgotten about the ball. It didn't matter, though. I couldn't have thrown it all the way home, even if I wanted to. Ricky Delaney finally threw it in, but TJ was already safe. By now, my coach's face was so red he looked like a chili pepper. For a minute, I actually thought he might explode. I needed help. Big time. I looked up to the clouds. Please, God. Please. Whatever you do, do not. I repeat, do not let our team get up to bat again until my coach settles down. If I have to go in now, he will kill me, God. I know he will. And if you think I'm a problem down here, just imagine what it'd be like to have me running around up there with you. You'd never have a minute's peace, God. Think about it. Right after that, Frankie Rogers threw 9 strikes in a row. I looked up again. I've done something to upset you, haven't I, God? You're still mad about me wearing a gorilla suit in last year's Christmas play, aren't you? There was no more stalling. I had to go in. My coach still hadn't taken his eyes off of me. He had a scary grin on his face, and he was pounding his fist into his hand. I kept my head down and raised my eyes. Someday we'll all look back on this and have a good chuckle, I muttered as I passed by. Oh, believe me, Alex, he growled through clenched teeth. You and I are going to have a whole lot of chuckles right after the game. But right now, you're up, so get your butt over there. My heart stopped. Up? No, Coach. How can I be up? I don't bat fourth. I never bat cleanup. The coach pointed. Davy Washington, our cleanup hitter, was being led off the field. Stomach problems, was all the coach would say. Meanwhile, the guy who usually bats fifth was all doubled over on the bench. He was breathing into a brown paper bag. My legs felt like rubber. but somehow I managed to put on a batting helmet and head in the direction of the batter's box. In the stands, Fran and Ethel were cheering. On the sidelines, the camera was still rolling. And on the mound, TJ Stoner was grinning his head off. This was easily the most terrifying moment of my life. There was no escape. None. No joke would save me now. I stepped up to the plate. As I did, TJ turned and hollered out the rest of his team. "Easy out! Easy out!" In unison, the entire infield took 4 giant steps in. I swear, it was almost like they rehearsed it. "Get ready for a bunt," yelled TJ again. "Great. Perfect. Give my strategy away, why don't you?" I muttered. But I didn't have a choice. It was either bunt the ball or not connect at all. TJ threw his first pitch. "Strike 1!" shouted the umpire. I turned and looked at him. "Why do umpires always yell strike so loud, do you think?" I asked. "Whenever it's a ball, you guys practically whisper. But as soon as you see a strike, man, you belt it out for the whole world to hear. Why is that?" The umpire told me to watch myself, pal. I turned and got ready for the next pitch. I had already made up my mind. I wasn't going to just stand there and let another ball go by. If I was going to strike out, I was going to do it swinging. Or in my case, bunting. TJ wound up and threw again. I stuck out my bat and got ready. As the ball whizzed over the plate, I bunted it sharply down the first baseline. I took off running. I couldn't believe it. I had actually made contact with a TJ Stoner pitch. Now, if only I could get on base. If I could get on base, all my problems would be over. I'd be a hero. And no one can be mad at a hero, not even my coach. The first baseman ran like crazy to get the ball. Meanwhile, TJ sped over to cover first. My teammates were screaming their lungs out. I just had to make it. The first baseman picked up the ball and got ready to make the toss. I was almost there. Just 3 more steps to go. The toss came. TJ reached out his glove for the catch. He had to miss it. He just had to. I flung my arms all around. "Booga booga!" I screamed in his face. "Booga booga!" TJ looked shocked. For just an instant, he took his eye off the ball. And that's all it took. It shot right past him and rolled into the outfield. I was safe at first. But wait, the coach was waving me on. As the right fielder scrambled for the ball, I headed for second. "Legs don't fail me now," I yelled as I hit full speed. I didn't look back until I was safely on the bag. The crowd in the stands went totally nuts. Fran and Ethel practically ran onto the field. This was the proudest moment of my life. "I did it! I did it!" I screamed. "I made it to second! Me, Alex Frankovich! I'm on second base!" The second baseman told me to shut up. But no one could ruin this moment for me. Not the second baseman, not TJ Stoner, not anyone. I was waving my cap to the crowd when I first saw TJ's coach. He ran onto the field and began yelling at the umpire. Then the next thing I knew, my coach was out there too. I had no idea what they could be arguing about. The play had been so simple. I had bunted, TJ had missed it, and I ended up on second. I still couldn't believe it. Wow! I started jumping up and down on the bag. Suddenly I saw the umpire walking toward me. He did not look happy. "Okay, don't panic, Alex. Maybe he's not really coming to second base at all. Maybe during the excitement someone threw toilet paper streamers onto the field, and the umpire's walking out there to clean them up." But a few seconds later, the umpire stopped right next to me. Then he leaned right down in my face and screamed, "You're out!" My mouth fell wide open. Out? How could I be out? I bunted. "You interfered with the play at first base," he said. "I did not. I didn't even touch TJ. "You put your hands in his face and shouted 'Booga booga,'" said the umpire. "I call that interference, not to mention unsportsmanlike conduct." Just then, my coach ran up behind the umpire and handed him the rule book. "Show me," he demanded. "Show me where it says you can't say 'Booga booga.' Where is it, huh? What page is the no 'Booga booga' rule on?" I don't know why, but all of a sudden, this whole conversation sounded unbelievably funny to me. I started to chuckle to myself. The umpire told me to get off the field. I looked up at him and grinned. "Booga," I said softly. The man looked at me like I was nuts. And who knows, maybe I was. "I said, get off the field," he repeated. I took his hand and shook it. Very sportsmanlike. "Booga booga," I said again. Then slowly I began trotting off the field toward the bench. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see TJ. He was laughing his head off. Instantly, I changed direction. Now, instead of running off the field, I began running straight toward TJ. If he wanted to laugh, I might as well give him something even more to laugh about. When I got to the mound, I lifted up his arm and started tickling him. "Want to laugh, TJ? This'll make you laugh," I said. TJ swatted at me with his cap. "Quit it, Alex! Knock it off! Everyone is watching!" For the first time in his life, he looked embarrassed. Truly humiliated, I mean. It was great, too. Almost as great as getting to second base. It didn't last long, though. The umpire had started to come after me again, so it was definitely time to split. I gave TJ a final tickle, then I ran right off the field and out the gate. I didn't slow down until I was home in my own room. I locked the door behind me and collapsed on the floor. I had a feeling I wouldn't be coming out for a long, long time.